All right, welcome, Chris. Today we have our next guest, Chris Haw, my good friend. Welcome onto the podcast.
Hello, hello.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah, it's good to be here, man.
Oh. Okay, so first question that I'm going to start off with is something that I ask all of my guests. It's, what's your story?
Oh man, dude, I was thinking about this last night. I was
Uh-huh.
like, what is my story? Because I heard the Lance's last podcast. Yeah, I mean, I still didn't come up with an answer, to be honest. But I mean, like, I would probably say that like most of how I remember my life and life growing up is being like a very shy and scared kid. Like I would be afraid of going up to like the cashier register and like ordering food because I didn't want to like mess up the order, like just didn't know what to do. So like that was kind of me growing up. And I think along the way, like I don't think that I've ever gone out of my way to like make friends per se. And in doing so, I think along the way that I've more or less grown more and more out of that state of mind or just mentality is being around really good people and good friends. So like coming up soon, one of my really old best friends is getting married, and he's had a lot of really big influences in my life because he's almost the exact opposite of the person that I am. He's very extroverted. He's very charismatic, and he has a great sense of humor. And so like growing up, I remember being in a bathroom stall and he was like peeing next to me and he was like, "Hey, you're that kid in the neighborhood, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And he was like, "We should hang out." And I was like, this is so weird, right? But like growing up with him, his name is Mark. Growing up with him, like he would always kind of like push me out of my comfort zone and bring me out because I was always comfortable staying inside, where it's like safe. I don't really have to like experience any kind of like discomfort, whether that's like exhaustion or just being around people that I didn't know. And yeah, like when I was like, when I like write drafts of like what I want to say at his wedding, I kind of learned that like he had a lot of big influences on my life in terms of like pushing me outside of the comfort zone in terms of like, I don't know, like stupid things of like actually having a childhood, like breaking rules, right? Jumping fences, like playing airsoft battles or just like having a lot of jokes, and I think that's like kind of like an interesting and special thing to have that I really cherish because sometimes I see like, whether it's like on social media or anything in general, where a lot of people are super sensitive about being offended. And I think that like being around Mark and just like my childhood friends, like it was, I wouldn't want to say like there was a lot of like racism in there, but like I would go over at like this house right next door.
Yeah.
It was my homie Jarrell's house, and I would go over and his dad would be like, "Korean boy, he's here." Or like I would go to Mark's house and his grandpa would be like, "Karate kid," and Mark would be like, "I'm so sorry." Or just like like having times on like Call of Duty like voice chats where like they're saying some horrendous shit that would get you canceled today.
Yeah.
But I thought that was like really cool to have, especially as somebody who is super quiet, and just to have somebody that would push me outside of my comfort zone. And then leading into like high school, I met you guys, and I think that we have a very dynamic group of people that kind of teach us a lot of very different things. And although like I don't like say it, like I'm, like I said, like I grew up very shy and quiet. So like a lot of what I did was be observant. And so like I may not have, like you guys may not have been telling me like how I should behave, but also like I just think that by watching you guys, like I've learned a lot through actions. And so like I would like for you as an example, like I look at you and I see like good amount of discipline, right? Just being able to have that like fitness journey that you go through, or just being able to have that mental discipline to meditate or different aspects like that. And I think that like having really good friends around me have been such great teachers in my life um, that I hold valuable and cherish. So, I mean, that's mostly my story. As of right now, you know, like I haven't done anything like super remarkable in terms of achievements and whatnot, but I've been doing a lot of self-reflecting and just learning about where I actually want to go as opposed to people pleasing and looking for approval in areas where I wasn't even, I guess, obtaining my own approval and my own respect, my own self-love.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's mostly my journey. Like, you know, you grow up, you're insecure, you're shy. You just kind of like got to get out there and have your own experiences. But yeah, I mean, like, there's always like these like singular events that happen in your life that, you know, alter and influence you in many ways. But I would say for the main part, like my story has been my growth through learning and being around people who I believe to have good hearts. So yeah, I mean, that's my answer, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned that there were singular. You mentioned the idea of singular events having a big influence on your life. Can you point to one of those that you can recall, maybe positive or negative?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit more private, but I mean, like, you know, my home is a lot more peaceful now, and I think my parents have grown a lot. But there was a lot more turmoil growing up.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them at all because, you know, like being first generation immigrants, it can be extremely stressful and yeah, like I don't think I've ever blamed them for like having the fights that they had or like where we were as children in between all that.
Yeah.
I won't go into too much specifics just for like the privacy of my own life, but yeah, I've definitely seen my dad like, you know, like I don't know if you've like heard like K rage or just like having like explosive anger, just like balled up, just like breaking things around the house. He's changed a lot for sure since a lot of those big points, but I would say that might have been one that has influenced my life in terms of really being able to see how dynamic people that I love can be, how scary they can be, how hurtful they can be. But at the same time, like, no, but like, I think that was a really big lesson early on that we truly aren't perfect. Like the people you love aren't going to be perfect. And you can still approach them with love, regardless of those facts, and learn and grow from those moments. So yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, I won't go into too many specifics, but I think that was a really big lesson early on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to appreciate, I think, our parents and like the struggles that they go through because we only see them as our parents, right? We see them in such a loving light, but like we don't see their struggles, right? That's something that they keep to themselves, and like we just don't know. We don't know what they're going through, and it's something that you don't really think about, right?
I mean, like I said, I feel like since early on, like I've thought about it a lot, especially, you know, sometimes my like dad will talk about his past.
Oh,
and, you know, like he doesn't go into too much detail, but I know that, you know, it was a struggle in Korea growing up, especially during their time.
Yeah.
And I never approached it with like a level of judgment because I've always known myself to be blessed. Like I thank my parents a lot for raising me up here in America, just because of like how much of a blessing it is. So like, who am I to judge from a position of privilege? That was a result of their sacrifice from a place where they didn't have that same privilege. And so whether that be like emotional intelligence or just like communication with each other. Like maybe that might not have been part of their culture growing up. Maybe it was more so to like suck it up or hold it to yourself, you know. So yeah, like it's funny because like I just kind of have this perspective where even when I don't like how somebody's behaving, I try my best to understand where they're coming from. It's not like a form of excusing their actions, because I can still disagree with their actions, but I can also try my best to understand why they're doing this, because I don't think anybody wants to be a villain in any scenario, or like, you know, just be the bad guy, I guess. And yeah, I mean, that's more or less.
This is something that I also think about. It's a thought that like, if I was in their shoes, if I grew up with the same experiences that they did, I would be doing the same things, the exact same things.
Or I don't know if I say like I would be doing the same things. I would say like, I don't know if I would be any better. Yeah.
It's a better way of putting it, I think. Yeah. Because it's a good way to check yourself on your judgment. Yeah.
Like, who am I to judge? Like nobody knows their life, man. Like every single interaction that they have growing up is influencing how they become. Yeah. And so like I said, it's no excuse for, you know, bad behavior, but I think you can approach it with a little bit more love if you try your best to understand it from a non-judgmental perspective.
Right. Yeah. So I know that you listen to a lot of what Jordan Peterson talks about. So for those that don't know, Jordan Peterson is a Canadian psychologist and writer. So my question would be, how has his work influenced or shaped you to be who you are today?
Yeah. I think he has a lot of really important messages that I've tried to implement within my life. One of those being is try your best not to lie. And I think that's been a really big help towards helping me understand who I am and who I'm not. Because it wasn't even like a lot of like, well, maybe so, like lying to others, like in small ways where I would make promises that I had no intention on keeping. Just to like, you know, keep them at bay, or like telling myself things that I thought were for myself, but were for the approval of others. So I found myself lying to myself too sometimes. And so I try my best to be as honest as possible now. And I think that's a way of life worth living. Because at least if somebody disagrees with me, or just doesn't like who I am, at least they're not liking the actual person that I am and not a front of who I am. Like if somebody likes me for a front of who I am, then you're losing at the end of the day, because you're just putting on a show. Yeah. So that's one aspect. I love his message of like clean your room, like manage your own space, because it teaches you to start very small. And I always think that that's the right answer. If there's anything that you want to do, start. There's always a place to start. Start somewhere. Start small. Like start as small as you can, because at least that's one step forward. And I think that was a really big message for me, because I was either extremely impatient with myself in terms of where I wanted to be or where I expected myself to be already. And so just kind of putting that aside and just saying, and just kind of accepting where I am, and also trying my best to not self-loathe and move forward is a really big help, because he's saying like the small steps are really big if you really think about it. So those two, I think I've tried my best to apply every single day and has helped me have a better peace of mind in terms of how I move through this world.
Right. Right. I also agree with you that those 2 points are very they're very big, and in the fact that they're so impactful on your life, but they're such small things to do, right?
Yeah.
Like being honest and not lying. Um I understood that I understood the part like don't lie to others, right? But what really hit me for that was don't lie to yourself. And that was like one of the biggest takeaways for me, because I realized that I was deluding myself on a lot of things that I wasn't comfortable with, but I would just lie to myself, right? I would say like, oh, it's okay, when really it's not. And once you really start to address you what you lie to yourself about, when you honestly be when you be truthfully honest with yourself, then you can start to live like a decent life, I think. Like you said, with peace of mind.
Yeah.
And I think that's so
And
important.
yeah, I just think also having that level of discipline
Yeah.
to, because like you can lie to yourself
Mhm.
when it comes to temptations too.
Yeah.
You
of
know what I'm
course.
saying?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it'll be fine. Like this is one time, I'm just having fun,
Mhm.
right? And it's like, you know, in your heart, you know, this ain't right.
Yeah.
Or you just know that like once you proceed with an action, you wake up with regret. That's just your mind telling you like, hey, this isn't right. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So like, um, yeah, like I do think that a lot of his messages, although simple, are very hard to implement. Like that, it's not a light objective to even just not lie. It's
Yeah.
really, really hard.
Yeah.
And you know, also his message of try to choose your words very carefully, I
Mhm.
think also matter. Um, especially because of how I've seen how my careless words can affect others and cause other people pain.
Right.
Yeah, I would just rather not live with a guilty feeling like that. So I I appreciate his message a lot. And if he ever hears this, hey, shout out Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. Yeah. The man is a legend.
Yeah.
He What I've noticed that is that a lot of what he talks about are kind of foundations.
Mm-hmm.
If you really think about it, these are the foundation to having um a solid life, or
Yeah.
living life
Yeah.
on your own terms, right?
Yeah.
And it's it's something that you have to really think about, because you're never really taught how to live your life,
Mm-hmm.
right? You kind of just learn by observation,
Mm-hmm.
and um like all of the influences around you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of also question at this point, what is serving me? What actions are serving me and what isn't,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it kind of sets a foundation for you to base your current life on, and like what actions you do take, to understand, okay, maybe this isn't such a good thing for me. It's this thing that I learned in my past, right? Maybe I should reassess and then try to figure out a better way of approaching it, or a better way of implementing this in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I think that's true. And I think that that's partially the reason why Jordan Peterson kind of has a lot of that fame,
Mhm.
is because like right now, there's this huge crisis between young men and, you know, just masculinity in general.
Yeah.
Like there's a huge conversation around that. Um, because I think it's true. Like what does it mean to be a man? Right.
Mhm.
And I just think that some of these simple traits, which are very hard to implement, such as being honest, um, such as being careful with your words. And by being careful, I think he also mentions like don't apologize when it's something you truly believe in.
Mhm.
Like like don't back down. Like
Yeah.
that's also part of being honest and being careful with your words, is because if you consistently try to conform with other people's thoughts and seeking out their approval, you lose yourself in that process. And it's like it's something worth thinking about. Like what, like I think about that a lot is what kind of man do I want to become? And I don't know. I just think sometimes I've always been looking for a good role model to kind of like show me a really good way. And I just liked how Jordan Peterson approached it. So yeah, I think that's where he gets a lot of his attention from.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say that Jordan Peterson is a model for you, a role model for you?
Yeah, I would say so for sure, because he moves through life in a very difficult manner that is true to himself, and I think that's what any man can strive for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think you put in a very, very good way, very correct way, like the way that, because Jordan Peterson is incredibly authentic. He's incredibly authentic, and you can feel it in his message.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's also part of his appeal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like I just really wanted to be more aligned with who I am and with my actions. That like before a lot of his messages, like my actions and my thoughts and like my ideas of right and wrong were just like all fucking crooked. like I was not, like I didn't feel very aligned. And still I struggle with that, but at least there's a little bit of guidance and a little bit of mentorship in his words. So.
Yeah, there's some direction that he provides.
Yeah. What about you? Would you say that or what would you say are the biggest things that stuck with you from Jordan Peterson? Because I know you listen to him as well.
I think it's the same. Don't lie, or don't lie.
Or I think he says,
tell the truth,
be honest, or at least don't lie.
Yeah. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. I think that was the biggest one, because after that one, I started recognizing, like I said before, all the lies I was telling myself. Yeah. And that's hard. It's hard to be authentic.
Oh,
it's hard to be authentic to yourself as well. Like that was the harder part for me.
Some people don't have a difficult time at all. Some people are just like, fuck you. And they're just like fully themselves. And that's kind of like what my friend Mark is. He's always been that guy. So yeah, some people don't have a hard time at all to do that, but I definitely do.
Yeah. It's difficult, but I mean, to each their own. No,
I respect it. I respect it. Especially like, man, I love it when I can have like a conversation when I can disagree with somebody and we're just having like a very honest conversation about our disagreements. And I have that a lot with Serban, actually. Like we have a lot of very opposing views, but I think we approach it with a foundational understanding that like, hey, we love each other, we're friends. But we can like hash it out, which I think is a lot of fun. And being a full, honest version of yourself allows you to be able to voice your opinions in opposition to even those that you highly respect or love. So that's something that I love to do. Like, it's a lot of fun. That's not like, I don't know. It's just when you go on social media, there's so much noise about like what's right versus wrong. And I'm just like, I was kind of thinking about this, right? Like, this is totally off topic. Go for it. But,
I love it.
Like, you know how like if you go to like an abortion center, there'll be like really like extreme religious groups like outside, like, oh, you're going to hell. But I was thinking like, okay, how effective is that really, right? Like, like shaming a person into making a decision versus like, what if like instead of that, like before they're walking in, like approaching them with a sense of love and just be like, hey, like can I buy you a coffee and can we talk a little bit? Like, I just want to, kind of like have a conversation with you, not to like push you or judge you or in any manner, just like really trying to understand each other. And if they're going to go with it, like go into that decision, then they're going to go into that decision. But I think foundationally, like, I think if you can approach a person with love and respect, like they're more likely to hear you and listen to your words. And so like, instead of like shaming or just disagreeing with somebody, like being able to like build a foundation of listening to each other is extremely important. And I was like, isn't that the whole point of like religion, is to like try your best to love each other, even regardless of the sins we're about to commit or sins we have committed. And I don't know, I feel like that would just be a more effective path.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the idea of treating someone as a human, as another human being.
Yeah.
Right? Respecting them and loving them.
Yeah.
And
because at the end of the day, like they're gonna make their decision with you or without you, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think, you know, sometimes our pride gets in the way, and we don't listening to each other even when we're disagreeing. And I've definitely had that experience myself for sure. Like I get into an argument, and at that point I just want to win. It's not even about like listening to each other anymore, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I agree. Like ego is such a big thing, right?
100%.
Ego is such a big thing, and it's so hard. It's so hard to overcome it. And I don't think many people do, like even want to, right? People are prideful.
Yeah.
People are prideful.
Including me.
Yeah.
I've definitely been there, bro.
Yeah. So sometimes, it becomes less about even being like right or wrong, more about just winning.
Yeah.
So wanting to put someone else down.
Yeah.
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 But,
so anyways, that was off topic.
No, I mean,
yeah,
it's fine. That's why I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of human nature. So
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Something that I wanted to ask you about is about your sense of creativity, because I knew you do art, like you draw and stuff. And as of now, as of late, you do more photography and film, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Has your passion for art shifted from drawing into film and photography, or was that just started as a separate hobby?
Yeah, no, like yeah. I mean, like, okay, so when it comes to like filming and photography, I wouldn't describe my work as art per se. Like, I think that I would describe it as like a, I don't know how to say it, like a designer, like as in the sense that like you're trying to make something look good. And like, okay, so I guess my definition of art, purely speaking, is you're trying to say something, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what form it comes through. Like, and by me saying like you're trying to say something, it's like kind of like you're speaking from the heart. Like, what are you feeling in that moment? And how are you expressing it? Like, I think art can be in the form of words, in form of jokes. Like comedians have a very great sense of art, like being able to layer their message of like love through like roasts or jokes that people can laugh at themselves. You know what I mean? Like that's art to me. Like, I think really good art says something, and it doesn't matter what form you put it in. I think that when I look at my photography, like, you know, like whether that's like grad photos or like portraits, it's for the purposes of making something look good. It's not for the purposes of like, hey, I'm trying to say something right now. And I think that's what art truly is at its core. So I think that when I think about my creativity, I've actually struggled with it a lot, because sometimes I'm more so trying to make things look good or look cool, as opposed to like, hey, like, what am I trying to say? Because that requires something to say. So you got to like dig deep into like, you know, what it is. And yeah. Sorry, what was the question? I totally.
No. It's basically just if you use photography and film as a channel for your creativity, as an outlet in a sense.
Yeah. Sure. Like creating something is cool regardless of whether you're doing it for like the purposes of making something look cool or just anything in general. I think building things is a creative outlet. Yeah. Or building and painting, drawing, music, Yeah.
Do you
But art itself
Mhm.
is like, for me, like needs a message.
Needs a message? It doesn't matter the medium, but it's the message behind it that's what matters.
For me,
Mhm.
for me, I don't know if that's like, and there's probably like fucking like art majors or something. It's like, that's completely wrong. I'm just like, all right, bro, I'm a business major, dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said that you don't particularly have things to tell
Mhm.
in order to consider your creative outlets as art.
Yeah.
So do you think that you would still use, if you had a story, if you
Mhm.
had a message to tell, do you
Mhm.
think you would use photography
Sure.
as your outlet?
Sure. Yeah. Like, the great thing about photography and videography is it's such a great medium to storytell. Stories are art too. Like,
Yeah.
whether that's like documenting a person's life, documenting a person's accomplishments, um, like, and then layering on top of that creativity, like, how do you want to tell that story? Is something that I've definitely been looking into. Um, and so, like, whether that's like documentary films or like documenting somebody's life. That's why I do those vlogs, is because
Mhm.
not that it's art, but it's just like I want to be able to like tell a little bit of my life through those stories.
Yeah.
And just like the silliness of just being a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm not a kid no more technically, but I'm just like 23 young. 23 is still young, I think.
Yeah,
And we're still stumbling around and being stupid. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That actually leads very well into my next question. So right before we hopped on this podcast, we talked a little bit about your direction in life and how you were questioning how you should approach deciding this. So I guess my question for you is what do you value? Um, and how are you approaching this next step of your life in which you have to
Mhm.
decide what you
Yeah.
pursue?
Okay. Well, I think so there's this podcast called, I think it's like Man Talks, I think something like that.
Okay.
But there was a recent one where he was like talking about like how to like kind of like get out of this feeling of being lost. And he mentioned something about getting your bearings straight. Like, even if you're lost in the woods, like, find yourself in relation to other things first to understand a general aspect of where you are. And so the way he kind of like took that analogy and applied it to your life is like, you don't have to know what you want to do right now, but if you are experiencing things and trying things out, you can tell what things are not working for you. So instead of finding or like stressing out about finding what is going to be like this life direction that you want to move in and really commit to, a really good start is finding out what is not serving you in that positive manner that you think could be more fulfilling. And so, like, the more obstacles you face, you can redirect yourself in a direction that's more suitable to what you picture your life to be. I thought that was some pretty good advice, because if you can find things that you really, really hate, at least you know that's not where you're supposed to go. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
it helps you get your bearings straight. So yeah, that's kind of how I would say I'm trying to look at trying experiences and trying to move forward. In terms of what I value in my life, above all else is people. Like for me, like I mean, you see me, bro. Like like I don't have like a lot of nice clothes, a lot of nice things.
Yeah.
Like, even like being around like luxury just kind of makes me uncomfortable. Um, like, monetary wealth um isn't my goal, but I understand it's a tool. Um, and so, like, the biggest thing for me moving forward is I don't care if I'm stumbling and making mistakes and doing things I don't like, but I want to prioritize being able to be there for the people that I love without being so distracted by the goal of monetary wealth. Whether that be like just simply having a conversation and checking in with my friends, or being able to sit down and having uncomfortable conversations with my family, just things like that. I think I don't want to run away from. I want to build really strong relationships so that when it comes time for Christmas or when tragedy strikes us, which it will, death is a part of life. Like the way I kind of imagine it is like I'm in a boxing ring, right? With myself. And so me fighting me, right?
Okay.
And life's gonna hit you with some crazy punches, bro.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get knocked down, boom, right? You get hit in the chin, you dizzy, whoa. Yeah. And you falling down and you almost want to give up, but like your friends are kind of like that net that's like holding you up. Like, and the crowd and the fans, like I'm trying to build that crowd around me, you know what I mean? Like cheering me on, like, hey bro, like you just got hit real bad, but we're here for you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that to me is wealth. Like having that people to stand by you when you get hit the hardest. I don't think money can buy that. Yeah. And there's gonna be, and then the same thing on the other side too. Like there might be people like as you get, more wealthy monetarily or whatever, like they also would probably want your downfall. So they're going to be screaming on the other side against you, cheering you on to give up. So, I just want to make sure that I got that network around me of like true good hearted people that care for me. Cause at the end of the day, man, what's it all for, bro? Like, like that's invaluable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the community that you build around you.
100%.
That you value and
100%.
cherish. Yeah.
So that's why I hope that like a path that I take forward leads me to calling like that crowd in the back of me cheering me on. That's my family right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I didn't grow up with a big family. Like I don't really like talk to my cousins a lot or have even met like the ones in Korea, but I look at my friends as my family. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
And my family. And
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're the first family. Yeah. And then their friends are the second family.
Yeah. No, I look at them all as one family.
One big family.
Yeah.
What are you doing to deepen your connections with?
Just asking questions. I mean, you're doing it right now, I guess, but like just whenever I can, just, hey, how are you doing? What's been on your heart? What's been on your mind? And truly asking those questions. Sometimes I have, as you can tell already, sometimes I have a difficulty of like, my mind will race and it'll ramble sometimes. So I gotta like remind myself to just slow down, like listen to what they're saying and come at it with a sense of sympathy, empathy, or love, or just love in general. Even if it's hard. Cause yeah, man, that's like one of the most beautiful things is like, even when somebody hurts you really badly, like to be able to like approach them with a sense of love can be one of the most beautiful things. And it's very inspiring to me. So I'm just like a lot of those small actions for me are really important to like my own personal well-being. It's a very selfish thing and selfless thing at the same time. Like I'm doing this because like I want you in my life, and I feel like when tragedy strikes me, like I hope you like somebody can be there for me the same way I'm here for you. Right. So yeah, that's more or less what I do. It's just really just ask the questions. People have the answers. Yeah, they just don't talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think it's very selfish for you to do this with the intention of.
Oh yeah, no, I don't feel guilty about it. No, I just know like like when I say selfish, it's like a stronger you is a stronger us, which is inherently like I'm doing this
For the greater good.
so that we can all be like lift each other up.
Right.
So it's selfish and selfish. Like I'm doing it for my own benefit again, but also for yours, so we could be up together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's why like I find it so fucking weird because like you hear these stories about like how when people get like rich or famous, like their friends that they grow up with like become resentful of them. And I'm like, bro, like cheer them on. Like they're like, if you're truly their friend, you want to celebrate their achievements. Don't look at yourself like with this sense of like huge insecurity and burn something down that, you know, like you guys built together for what? Because you're like insecure about where you are in life or just like monetarily. Like it doesn't make sense to me. Like I don't care if I'm not that rich, bro, but I'm fucking like I'm hyped the fact that like Josh has like all this money or Lance is like making all this money. That's fucking sick, bro.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah. I think it kind of comes back to the ego thing, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, pride, ego.
Yeah. Because it's also a reflection of who they are as an individual, right? If they care more about their own position in life and compare it to their friend
100%
rather than to value and cherish their friend and the success that they had. Yeah. It also, I'm pretty sure this also is something that that rich people use to distinguish like who their true friends are, right? Because money is a crazy thing. Like it'll show. Like I heard once that I heard multiple times actually that money just makes you a more money amplifies who you are as an individual.
Sure.
Right. So if you're kind and caring, but you have a lot more, like you become really rich, you're able to give a lot more. But it also works in the other way. Like if you're very selfish, you're going to be extremely selfish with more money.
Yeah, I can see that. I could also see though that it could change a person too. I think a person can be very like generous and giving, but then like when they accumulate a lot of wealth, they can become scared of losing it. And then they might not be as giving. I mean, like, you know, just I think depending on like what kind of people you have around you and like what kind of guidance you kind of have, like it can also change a person too. I don't deny that. But I can also see the fact that it can also amplify a lot of other aspects as well.
So you said when that you, in order to deepen your relationships, what you do is ask questions. So that's something that you would do. I'm wondering what are some qualities of a good friend? What do you think?
Qualities of a good friend.
Yeah.
Show up, more or less. Like show up for the good times, show up for the bad times.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, like to me, like man, that's really all it is. The way I dream about it.
Yeah.
Like I want my Christmases to be fucking packed with people I love. I want my hard times to be packed with people there to care for me as well. Show up and I mean my love language is being of service. So like but it's so funny because Jion called me and he was like, "What are you doing July 1st?" I gotta move, and I was like,
He got you.
Yeah, he got you. Dude, I've helped so many of our friends move that I was just like, okay. But no, he can't movers. Sorry, Jion. Yeah, no. Like that's the way I show love. However, which way anybody else shows love, show love and just show up.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned before we got on the podcast that Humble the Poet, an interview or a podcast that Humble the Poet was on, had a big influence on your perception of drugs.
Yeah.
and substances.
Yeah.
Could you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So he wasn't talking directly about like substances or anything of
Mhm.
that sort, but um he was talking along the lines of how his relationships with his friends, in terms of listening to their problems, he always felt a sense of value and sense of significance through that aspect. Um, but he mentioned that I think he was talking to a therapist, but that it was like a one-way street, in which the friend was being vulnerable, but he wasn't necessarily sharing his vulnerabilities in return as well. So um, I think through that aspect, he continues to talk about how when he would talk about his um, or when he would talk about having these conversations with other people, he realized that what was happening was that when they were talking about their pain, it would be triggering his own, and that he was unable to kind of sit with his own pain. So he would kind of go into like a solution mode, like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, as opposed to just listening and sharing in their pain. And so um, I kind of took that and I realized, damn, like I wasn't really sitting with my own pain, with my own sense of like loneliness or anything like that. And I think part of the obstacle to that was like using drugs or just like um, smoking weed or just alcohol in general, where it was more or less an avenue of distracting myself um, away from that pain that I was running away from essentially. And I think after leaving college and being by myself a lot of the times, gave me a lot of time to reflect on that aspect and was tired of running away from that. And so I was like thinking about it because I remember when I was younger, I would have a lot of these conversations with my friends where I would really ask them like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And diving deep into more deeper conversations. And I realized the more that I would use substances like weed or alcohol or anything like that, like it was more so a very shallow interaction where I would even say things that I would sometimes not even really mean, or I would say things that were reckless and could hurt others. And so I didn't want to do that anymore. Like I was kind of tired of that. Um, and so that's kind of how that conversation triggered a realization of my substance use uh, as a means to run away. And I didn't want to run away anymore. So I think being able to sit with my own pain has allowed me to connect a lot better with the people around me. Yeah.
Oh. Have you seen? Do you think there's an influence on how it affects our friend group?
Um, yeah, I mean, like, I I would just say that because of coming to that realization, I don't like having conversations of that nature. Like, even if I'm sober, if that other person is under the influence, because I really want them to talk to me from a place of like truly being able to dive into that pain as opposed to like having some substance to kind of like influence that. Like I think that like whenever somebody kind of approaches me with a problem or vulnerability of that sort, at the end of it I usually say thank you for sharing that with me because it takes a lot of courage. But I think sometimes if it's, just like under the substance, like, they might not be describing it fully or fully aware of like, what they're saying. And I want to be really, I want them to be really conscious about what they're saying because I want to really listen.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I don't want to do like no half-assed like conversation. Of course, like if somebody's in pain and they're under the influence, like I'm more than happy to listen still, but I would just really hope that, they can come to me from a place of like truly being present in that conversation and being present with their own pain.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I think that can be an obstacle in terms of having a deeper understanding of each other. So yeah, I would say in that sense it is an obstacle because man, life's short, and I want to be able to understand the people around me and what, just have those kinds of deep and complex conversations where I can ask them questions and they can really think about it without like being drowsy or being tired. You know what I mean?
Being fully present.
Yeah, because I think that like when you ask questions, sometimes like it requires you to really process like either the emotions or like it's hard, dude. Like,
Yeah.
like being able to like really dive deep and dig in requires you to consider the other person's question, kind of like remember moments where it might have stemmed from, and then processing that in a way that can maybe be more healthy and challenging that perspective on how you view it. Those steps, I think, require a lot of like cognitive thinking.
Yeah.
And so like being under the influence, man, like it can be difficult to truly process all that. So I find that as an obstacle, even for myself. Like just even asking those questions to myself, like I just would like come to a blank end. I just like I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from.
Right.
Yeah. It takes time.
Because these questions, these kinds of conversations, they're not something that you can really do truly. And honestly, if you're under influence, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's.
I think the feelings can be true. I think the feelings can also be amplified though. Like if you're drinking, like it's a depressant. It's gonna amplify those like feelings of sadness and loneliness.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because sometimes it's the substance talking and not really the person.
Yeah. Or like I said, I think that it can amplify it a lot more. So you can feel that pain a lot more. It can feel like a lot more like excruciating sometimes. But if you really take the time to like be patient with it, sit with it, feel it without running away from it, you can come to understand it a lot better and articulate it better. So yeah, that's like a pretty huge reason for my journey of sobriety, more or less. Like, I mean, I'll have a beer in there here and there, like it's whatever. But I don't use it as a means to like run away from anything anymore.
Right. I think the problem with substances, the biggest problem is that people use it as a crutch to distract themselves, right? To run away from their problems.
Yeah.
And these conversations that you would have with someone is specifically the opposite.
Wait, sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the conversations that you have where you dive deep into the pain, it's exactly the opposite of what these substances are trying to achieve, right?
Yeah, you're trying to face it and understand it versus run away from it and try to forget about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's just one quote by Sadhguru. He's like a yogi.
Was it a yogi?
Yeah. So he's
Yoshi? What?
A yogi is basically like an Indian yoga practitioner, but he, I don't know if that's correct, but he basically is like a very high spiritual figure.
Sure.
Something that he said was, the only way out is in.
Okay.
And I think that's true for a lot of instances, right? And it's very reflective of the message that a lot of other people give as well. Like, for example, Jordan Peterson, he says, like, do the hard thing, right? Like, don't run away. Like, he has the message or the story where, like, there's a married couple and you go into their house and then you see that their wedding presents are still unpacked. Like, just sitting there.
Yeah.
And those are like the problems that they just don't address, right? They're just hiding it under the rug. And it's those problems that you have to face in order to move forward. It's that pain.
Yeah.
It's the suffering that you have to endure in order to go forward in life.
Yeah. Well, I think when he used that analogy,
Uh-huh.
or like, I think he was more so talking about like the unattended, um, like if you can't get the small things right, the small things are how you do everything,
Mhm.
right? So like when I think he mentions that, it's more along the lines of like this is a task that has been put off that is not of extreme significance, but is still yet unattended to.
Yeah.
So I could only imagine the things that need to be attended that have a lot of significance wouldn't be attended to either.
Right.
And so I think that's like equating how you do small things or how you do everything. I think that's the way I understood it, at
Mhm.
least. Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah. What do you think about happiness?
Happiness?
Yeah. What do you think happiness is?
Well, I don't think that's the main goal. I think a lot of people talk about that. Like, I want to be happy. It's like, what? Sometimes I like doing things where I'm not happy. Does that make sense? I like going
Could you explain further?
I like going to the gym, but when I'm there, like, I don't know if I'm happy, bro. Like, I was sitting there like, rep 7, rep 8,
One
but
more.
like, yeah. But I sit there and I like to do it.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean I'm happy while doing it. I think, yeah, I don't know. That's literally like seeking out like one feeling out of like the large dynamic options of feelings that you can feel. It's like, why just focus on one? Some like, cause like for me, like sometimes like situations that can make you sad, I can still look at positively, because things that can cause you pain, offer you a sense of wisdom that can then lead you to lessons to help somebody else in the future. And for me, like feeling fulfillment and significance is being able to like help somebody along their journey. Because like it's so funny because like on social media, there's like always these like videos that I'll see sometimes. It's like how to become the main character of the story. And it's like for like you and I, when we play League of Legends, we play the support character.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I think that it's funny because sometimes like being the support is just as good as being the main character. And that doesn't always mean seeking out your own happiness, but also seeking out somebody else's happiness as well. And yeah, like there's a lot of lessons. And I think that being able to be stronger as an individual to help lift somebody else up at the same time and the future is something that I extremely value. So, like I think a lot of people get asked the question about like if they regret anything on the Diary of a CEO. And I always think that shit is a stupid ass question, because like if you are gonna face your mistakes or just look back on the person that you were and you don't want to be anymore, you truly understand why you don't want to do that anymore. As opposed to like, if you've never done that, then you don't know how to speak to somebody who's in that same position, right? So here's how I'll kind of clarify it. Is like I came to the realization that there's a difference between knowing and understanding. You can know something is bad, but understanding it is having been gone through it, right? So like let's take addiction for example, right? Somebody who's been through the addiction, who's felt the pains, who's felt the highs of the substance and also the lows of the substance, and has crawled themselves out of that hole to a place where they have found peace. That is somebody whose words can really land on somebody's ears when they're going through that situation, as opposed to somebody who's never done it before. That's like that, that like advice of saying, just say no. You know what I mean? Like, don't touch substances at all. It's like, yes, like that would be great in a perfect world. But I think sometimes having gone through that pain you can be like an angel for somebody else. Like you can help be an example, help be a support system for somebody like that. And I think that's extremely valuable. And I don't think that was the goal of it. And I think that required pain to learn. So, difference between knowing and understanding requires you to experience the full spectrum of the emotions of the human experience, whatever, right? And And I was talking to Servant about that actually, because I remember I was listening to his podcast on this one, and he was saying like, "Oh, Chris is so wise," and I was like, I told him like I'm not wise, bro. Like I think I'm very empathetic and sympathetic, and I think through things, but wisdom comes from experience. And Jordan Peterson says this all the time. Like he's like, be weary of unearned wisdom.
Right.
And it's like I can have my opinion on it, but if I haven't lived through it, you know, like
you haven't experienced it.
Like I don't truly understand. I mean, no, but I don't truly understand. So I think like that's really important. So like everybody has their own levels of wisdom and lessons if they're willing to look for it and search for it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think happiness is a fucking like that. That's just like it's a fleeting aspect. It's great, but I think peace of mind is a better goal. You know, peace of mind requires struggle. Peace of mind also requires feeling happiness, feeling gratitude, feeling appreciation, being accountable to oneself, being able to respect oneself, being able to be disciplined. That's like a huge spectrum of shit that doesn't require happiness at all. A lot of it requires pain. You know what I mean? It's like, that's a better goal.
I think peace of mind is the basis, the foundation that you want to set for yourself to be in.
Yeah, just being fully aligned with yourself.
Right. And then happiness is something that comes and goes, is a fleeting emotion.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's great. Like, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, I don't know why people obsess about it. Like, imagine if you met somebody that was just happy their whole entire life. Like, that is so weird. Like, you're a weirdo.
Yeah, it would be weird.
Yeah. Like, I think like it's funny because I think a lot of comedians, the better they are, the more pain they've actually experienced as well. Mm-hmm. Like they understand like how to laugh at somebody's pain because they know how to find the joy in their own.
Right.
So yeah, like I think that shit's stupid to just focus on one emotion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's like saying like I only want to see the color red. It's like, why? There's other colors too. Like you might not fucking like it. I mean, that's a bad example, but it's like there's differences in that spectrum for a reason. Mm-hmm. Like the more you understand the whole, the more you can fully experience life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because life isn't just one emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like, bro, like it's literally inevitable that you're not going to be happy at period of time, because in order to achieve like even those like highest sense of happiness, whether that's somebody that you're truly in love with and like experiencing that, they're going to go away, bro. Like they're going to die. It's going to cause you grief and pain, but you have to be willing to experience that in order to experience the happiness.
Right.
So it's like, I think that shit's stupid.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Going back to what you said about knowing versus understanding, would you say that this is also where the difference between sympathy and empathy comes from?
Sure. Yeah.
Because
I think that's like kind of the definition of it, no? It's like sympathy is like having been gone through something and you're able to connect with somebody on that basis. Mm-hmm. Empathy is understanding like almost like somebody's in pain. You've never gone through it, but you're trying to connect with that aspect. Like I think that's like literally the definition difference between empathy and sympathy. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Final question before we end off here. Mm-hmm. We did talk about this a little bit, but if you want to expand upon it a little bit more, what are you struggling with, and what are your next steps? It's the next.
Yeah.
It's next.
Man, I'm a 23-year-old post-grad lost dude. Currently working as a waiter, and trying to figure out a path in life that, you know, I can be honest with myself in and find avenues of struggle to grow and strengthen myself, both mentally and physically and intelligently, I guess. But yeah, no, I mean, like I'm just considering paths right now. I've been talking to a Navy recruiter, kind of feeling out my options within that path. It's something I'm carefully considering, because it is a 4-year commitment and I don't take that very lightly. And also considering my past drug history, which I was upfront and honest about. I'm on this like whole journey of being honest. Like, why the fuck would I lie? And it's such a important aspect. But yeah, so I'm seeing if that's even an option, because I would still have to get that waived. And then yeah, I mean, I still have like side hobbies of side income, such as like photography and film. And yeah, I wouldn't say like I'm trying to like experiment and find those obstacles of things that I don't like to help guide me to places I do like. So I would say that's what's next right now, which doesn't sound like much of a plan. But it's something, it's a start. Mm-hmm. And just gonna apply for some jobs and see what's up.
Are you thinking specifically in terms of like what obstacles you wanna, or like what direction, maybe not direction, but what things you want to try out, experiment with?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I would love to find something in media, in terms of film and documentaries and things like that. I think that would be fantastic. I think I want to do more research into becoming a therapist. But like a lot of those things that, or at least like a lot of those things that require more schooling, like I want to be able to earn an income soon so that I can like help my parents, and just kind of like relieve the stress of like me being a dependent, because I'm still dependent, unfortunately, but that's just the fact of the matter. And yeah, like I don't want to do it on their dime. I want to do it on mine. Which could also be a pride thing if they're willing to help me. Like, I don't know, but yeah. So there's a lot of avenues I want to explore, and some might not be for me, and some may be. So just gonna stumble around and find out. But like I said, that's not a great plan. So,
but I mean, I think it's important that you have something.
Yeah,
it's important that you start somewhere.
Yeah,
and it's like you said about before, Jordan Peterson's message, you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Got to take the first step.
Yeah, I would just really like to grow up, because like a big part of growing up is being accountable. And I think for a long time I've looked at my past, and I can be accountable for where I've been lazy and where I've been scared and where I've been mainly those two things. Scared or just lazy or just unwilling to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get out there and just be uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. Something that Lance tells me a lot actually is just if you don't know what to do, just keep firing the gun. Eventually you'll hit something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of very, very similar to the idea, the advice that the other guy on the podcast you were talking about, like, orient yourself, find your bearing.
Find your bearings. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very similar. So
yeah, man. I mean, dude, there's like so much I could keep going on and talking about. But yeah, I'm sure the podcast has already ran long enough. But actually, like one thing that I want to ask you.
Okay, yeah.
I was kind of like asking around, and I find this like such an interesting question. Is like, are you proud to be American?
So this is very interesting because I would have had a very different answer 2 months ago.
Okay, interesting.
My answer that I'll give you now is yes.
Okay.
I am. The reason why it would have been different, I would have maybe said no 2 months ago, but recently I went on a trip to Korea and Japan, and I had a lot of interactions with international students there actually, and we were talking a lot about how they experience life living in Korea, and I noticed that the feelings that I had were very similar to what they were experiencing. Is that I felt a sense of disconnect with the people in Korea,
Mhm.
and which like I didn't understand at the time because I'm Korean, right? Well, technically I'm Korean American, but I still identified myself as Korean.
Yeah.
So I thought that I would feel like a part of the Korean community,
Mhm.
but it's not the case.
Mm.
And one of them said that it only makes sense because we grew up in different cultures. We grew
Yeah.
up in different communities, and so for us to expect to be able to be a part of this community and culture
Mhm.
doesn't really make sense, right? So I think like as Korean Americans, we live in a very unique situation where we grow up within America in these communities, in these Asian communities in America, right? But we also have an Asian and diverse cultural background. So it puts us in a very unique position, and I I think it's a good thing. I think it's something that um, that adds to who we are as individuals, and it's just another aspect of our lives that is unique.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like from what I got though, it
Mhm.
seemed like, you know, you felt some disconnects going back to the motherland.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you're talking about like that multicultural aspect of kind of being within American culture, but also having that slight connection to um, our roots,
Right.
to Korean culture as well. Uh, but like, what specifically would kind of make you say that you're proud to be American? I guess. Like, what about being American, like the American culture,
Mhm.
that separate aspect that you've learned or have been exposed to? Um, like, what about that?
Mm. I think I'm proud of the economic opportunity that we have, of the economic, um, basically the market that was formed within America. I think that's something that we should take pride in because, like, we think that it's hard to find jobs and to work here,
Mhm.
but other people have it so much harder around the world, right?
Yeah.
Like, our parents came to America for the opportunity, for
Yeah.
better opportunities, and we just don't know what to compare it against, which is why I think we're blessed, right? It's hard to see it because
Yeah.
we're kind of in the shithole, but
Yeah.
but with the market state right now, but
Yeah.
like it's hard to see. But I think that we are blessed in
Yeah.
this in this in this market.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting that you say that. Yeah. Cause no, I don't know. There's like this like whole like context that like America's this like super shitty ass place. And
Mm.
like, I can understand where like foreign countries would, you know, kind of talk about that in terms of like seeing the state of some of our like political world or just like in
Yeah.
general, like, um, I guess like our sensitivity, like in terms of like social media or just like our
going
very
on?
like consumer oriented lifestyle. Um, but yeah, no, like it's super interesting to me because the whole entire reason why I even considered the military was because um, I I think like I came to this like kind of like thought or just like conclusion that like a lot of us claim to be Americans, but we have sacrificed nothing to be it. You know what I mean? Like, and then on top of that, you know, we have a generation that kind of sometimes shits on it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, these ungrateful little hoes. Like I understand we have flaws. I understand that we have a very dark side to our country, but which country doesn't? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like we have this opportunity looking at our country and just like I said, like even within our personal lives, but also like as a country, like we can look at our dark sides and really dive in and understand it. And if we can approach it with some understanding and learn from it, you know, I think we have a really great opportunity as a country to make our, forefathers proud type
Yeah.
shit. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like a lot of people have died in sweat and have like strive for this country to be in. And we have a lot of these privileges like freedom of religion and just
Mhm.
freedom of opinion. That's
Yeah.
huge. And I don't know, it's kind of interesting to see that like we're kind of like losing that aspect within our culture where it's like censoring and just like cancel culture, putting these pressures on opposing ideas. Like I said, I love to have differing ideas as long as like we can have a foundational understanding of like, hey, like you're my brother and sister, you know what I'm saying? Like we're here in this country together. If some country attacks us, we're fighting side by side. You know what I'm saying? So like I think we sometimes forget about that aspect. And it's just, man, this place is a beautiful country, and like it has given me so many great friends from so many different backgrounds.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you get that anywhere else. And I don't know. Sometimes it's sad to see. Sometimes it makes me angry because I'm just like, I feel like sometimes we can be ungrateful for a lot of these privileges that we have.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, like, I mean, yeah, that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
That
Did you find that the people that you asked this question to were generally more or less?
they were well, I think that what holds a lot of people back is highlighting a lot of our mistakes, whether that be our foreign military intervention abroad, or whether that be institutional racism, or like the wealth gap.
Yeah.
There's a lot of disparity in this country for sure.
Mhm.
And it is 100% not something to ignore. But man, like that, I think we did a lot of things right. You know, we had a lot of civil rights movements. We have a lot of really good free education. Like you said, we have a lot of good economic opportunities, and the United States is one of the countries that has the highest levels of philanthropy worldwide. And I just think that the more we focus on what is set to divide us, like the more we start looking at each other like separate states. Like it almost doesn't feel like a whole country right now. And that sucks because like bro, like I know for a fact, like even fucking, like Koreans can be extremely racist, and so can white people, and so can black people. It's like, like, and sometimes the racism can be funny if you can like pile that shit back too. Like, I mean, obviously, like not in any way that's like extremely discriminatory, but like it's kind of funny because when I was like growing up with my old childhood friends, like a lot of our jokes are like stereotypical. Where like my homie D would like point to like we'd be in Chinatown and he points to the sign. He's like, "Chris, what does that say?" I'd be like, "Fuck you, D." And I think there can be a lot of humor in that, but it's just funny because sometimes those stereotypes are true, bro. Like my siblings are both like studying to be doctors and they're Asian. My best subject in school was math. It's like. It's like, fuck you, dude. Yeah. And it's just an interesting question to have, I guess. Yeah. Because I don't know. I think that we sometimes focus too much on the negatives and we're not looking at our actual brothers and sisters who are Americans standing side by side with us. And I think that's something we can be proud of.
Right. Like you said, there's a lot of focus right now on what divides us. And it's a lot of just tribalism.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, people are more focused now on what other people are doing wrong or something, or on what goes against what someone's position is.
Yeah.
And like,
and I like, man, I love it when we can disagree, but when we can have an actual conversation. Yeah. Without like people screaming over.
Yeah. Without it debilitating to a screaming match. Yeah. Right.
There's such a thing as having more than one right answer to a problem. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. I do want to stop it now because it's over an hour. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say?
Last thoughts.
Yeah, last thoughts.
Yo, okay.
Anything?
Last thing.
Uh-huh.
Just I don't know. I would like recently I've been like trying to be more religious,
Mm.
and like, you know, it's kind of nice.
Oh.
Like I'm starting small. Like I'm just
Uh-huh.
like I'm just trying to pray, and yeah, like just like praying for my friends, praying for my family, and
Mhm.
just trying to be really grateful. And you know, maybe that's one aspect that we've lost in this country, is that aspect of religion. Because I don't know, in a weird way, like I feel like when I was like thinking about religion, if like I came to subscribing to religion, like I like my pride was almost saying like, oh, I lost, right? Like
Mm.
in a way where it's like oh, I spent so much time trying to not believe it that it's like, oh, now I'm trying to believe this like fantasy thing. But I don't know. I think it's an interesting avenue that has been somewhat helpful in my life.
Yeah.
So I'm trying it. I'm not like, I wouldn't title myself a Christian, but you know, like I was like thinking about it logically.
Mhm.
Right. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No,
This could be another tangent.
Just continue.
But like none of who we are is a consequence of ourselves. So like sometimes we approach this world with like a sense of like a God complex, where it's like everything that happens to us is solely because of our own actions. I think a lot of like this modern world tells us that like you build your wealth by working hard, right? But also it's like our very existence and our very mind and obstacles and health are not by our own decisions and our own accord. And that's the same thing. If you keep following it back to your parents, it was not their decision to be the people. I mean, like obviously there's effort involved in free will, but like you keep tracing it back, and like you come to a point where it's like first life. This is so weird, but like what was like first life, and then you know science always says like, oh, it was like a fucking combination of like molecules that like hit each other at the right time or whatever, right? Created the first cell. And then yeah, I think it like from like a scientific point, whether you wanted to call it like God or Allah or the Big Bang or whatever, it's like this energy, this force that has led to where we are in this like complex cascading event. And I think that if you know, taking psychedelics, you know, you feel this like complex like sense of like energy and sense of love.
Right.
And yeah, that's like mainly how like I started to kind of understand like that aspect of religion, is like this energy, this truth of love that I'm trying to explore. And I think that like I'm trying to do that through religion and praying. But yeah, anyways, that was a last one, because I don't know. I feel like it might be our arrogance standing in the way of finding higher levels of spirituality.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
This was a great. I love the conversation that we had. Thank you for coming on this podcast, and that's that.
Yeah. Thank you.